Hello Homo sapiens. Today I'm going to tell you about the smallest and most important part of our body, the cell. What is a cell? No, it's not a prison cell. Instead, its definition is the smallest functioning unit of an organism. And cells make up almost everything in our body, from eyes to skin to the stomach and even the bed of your fingers. Cells are tiny little machines that we have all over our body. We can observe them under microscopes. But it's not only people that have cells. Animals have cells, and so do plants. Plants have a different type of cell with different structures than animals. So, what makes up an animal cell? First, a cell is like a bubble, a balloon, and there are things inside it that keep the cell alive. The most important part is the nucleus. It is the center of the cell. It holds genetic information, instructions on how to produce proteins. It also stores information on how to divide. This information is stored in chromosomes, and a normal person has 46 chromosomes. This nucleus is surrounded by a structure known as the rough endoplasmic reticulum, shortened to rough ER. The rough ER is used to produce proteins because it's studded in what we call ribosomes. Ribosomes are tiny little factories that exist all throughout the cell. And these ribosomes, they are able to transform genetic code and amino acids into proteins. And these proteins are able to do a lot of things. The densest place where the ribosomes exist is the rough ER, hence why it's rough. It looks like a maze, a wavy pattern. And right next to the rough endoplasmic reticulum is what we call the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And this does not have any ribosomes, which is why it's smooth. Its main function is to produce lipids, also known as fats. It can store carbohydrates. But what are these things floating in? Well, they are floating in something known as the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the term used for the liquid inside the cell. It's kind of sticky, it's mostly made of water and amino acids, but it's what gives cells rigidity. Another thing you might have heard existing inside of a cell is the mitochondria. Now this is a really famous one because the mitochondria is basically what powers the cell. There are a few mitochondria inside of each cell. The mitochondria is able to convert glucose into ATP, adenosine triphosphate, to power the other functions of the cell. Outside the cell, we have something known as the plasma membrane. It is a two-layered membrane that separates the outside of the cell from the inside of the cell. It is made up of these things that kind of look like pincers, and the long legs of the pincers, that's what we call the hydrophobic end, and the circular end is the hydrophilic end. Hydrophobic means afraid of water, and hydrophilic means likes water. And these things, when you have two of them together, the hydrophobic ends join and the hydrophilic ends go apart. So if you add a bunch of them together, it'll form a sphere of two layers, which is why we call it the lipid bilayer. Its purpose is to, aside from separate, let things in that can go in. So its purpose is to let oxygen in and carbon dioxide out, but not let viruses in. It can also stop the cytoplasm from getting out. It's basically a giant filter. Well, not giant, microscopic. Inside of the cell, we also have this thing known as the Golgi body. And its purpose is to specialize the proteins. And how it does this is from the ribosomes, which are located all over the cell. The ribosomes will package the protein in tiny things known as transport vesicles. The transport vesicle will then carry it over to where it needs to go, in this case the Golgi body. And the Golgi body will then add something, remove something, add something, remove something, so that the protein is specialized to do this one thing. And we have something known as the lysosome. The lysosome is mainly focused on defense, but it can also be used to recycle, because a lysosome contains digestive enzymes, and once it is detonated, it's basically like a tiny little digestive water balloon. It will release those enzymes and dissolve whatever is around it. So if a virus is around it, then and the virus will be disintegrated. But if there's a part of a cell that's gone old or is not functioning correctly, like a non-functional ribosome, then the vacuole can just pop and that part is recycled.